to Ancient Wisdom, episode 67. Today is gonna be a fun one. We got a lot to get into, but let's let Aesop illustrate the theme of today's show, shall we? With the ant and the grasshopper. There was this diligent ant working hard throughout the entire summer. He was storing up so that the winter wouldn't be so bad, gathering food, paying his bills, preparing for the harshness to come.
Makes sense.
And he had this buddy, the grasshopper, who said he was going to help him out, but backed out on his word and instead was just like doing drugs and getting women and stuff.
Classic.
And then when the winter arrives, the ant is well prepared and survives comfortably. And the grasshopper dies. We are in chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita.
8?
8, man. Can you believe it?
How much knowledge do I have?
God, how much room is there in my brain for this? Can't take it. Everything seems to... Seriously. Well, this one is called the Akshara Brahma Yoga, my friend. So you're going to learn another, whether you like it or not. Also translated as the Eternal God by some, These translations, east to west translations, are always super tough. It's more of a spirit. But I'm getting deeper in my Chinese knowledge, and Chinese might be the easiest of all languages to learn, believe it or not. Give it a try. You're going to be able to communicate with our future world warlords and invaders.
I think you're right.
So, there's a plus side to everything here. Let Arjuna tell you, Poj, what this chapter is going to be about. Please explain to me, Shri Bhagavan. He wants to know, what is Brahman, dude? He's as confused as you. I think you should, you could take heart. Was that the phrase?
Identify with.
Yeah, identify with this guy.
Yeah, Arjuna seems to just be like on my... Whoa. Everybody saw my setup.
Tour,
That wasn't supposed. You guys got a quick behind the scenes look you weren't supposed to get.
If too many secrets are revealed, they can take it out. But see, I really think this is cool that Arjuna is just as confused as all of us. He's supposedly this chosen being and whatnot, but he's still just like, by chapter 8, he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Maybe like all of us.
It was like chapter 2 or 3. I was like, I get it.
Yeah. And then there's like 12 more chapters.
Yeah, why?
He could have just stopped there. Those Indians like to write, dude. I told you some of these take like 4 months to read if you read 24/7. Some of these,
and it's like once I get to chapter 13, I forgot what was going on in chapter 2.
Yeah, right. So let's do a brief recap. We got Arjuna, the chosen one, on the battlefield here. He's kind of the king. He's at this civil war with all his friends and family. He's like, man, I don't want to kill my friends. What is life all about? You're torn. You ever had to fight with your family? You ever had to kill friends and family? It's tough. Maybe it's not something we experience in modern times, but but still, what is it all about? Why am I even doing this? Is it worth it? And God has just been talking to him for 8 chapters, speaking kind of some deep stuff, maybe nonsense stuff to be interpreted, but he still wants to know. Explain to me, what is Brahman? Mm-hmm. What even is self? What are these fruitive activities of which you speak? What is material manifestation? What are the demigods? He doesn't know any of this.
Right, because we've been talking about all these things for 8 chapters, but he brings up a good point. He's like, wait a minute, you told me all these concepts.
Yeah.
There's all these characters.
I really love this, actually.
Like, why?
I love this, that he's just as confused as us.
Yeah.
And how do those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Now, I've related this to what I know, which is not much, take it with a grain of salt, of the Christian religion. Isn't it true that they say you must accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior at the time of death to go to heaven? You guys heard this?
Correct, yes.
I didn't know that it was at time of death, but I thought that was all right.
I feel like that's just a phrase I always heard,
It's got to happen before you die, is the point.
So you could fuck around all the time and then just accept him at the time of the death. But to your point, Evan's point is like, you don't know when you're going to die. Mm-hmm. But then Poge's point was before
you
that...
Can just cover all your bases.
Yeah, you might as well just cover all. You might as well just do it anyway, and you have to be honest about it, right? Is that the word?
Can't lie. You can't be sorry in a fake way.
It's kind of sad too. Me and Evan were talking the other week about actors or something like that.
Oh man, they'd be such good reconciliators.
Dude, they could do it because they'll actually believe it in that moment. Do you just pretend? Do you just act that you accept God as your Lord and Savior?
Psychopathic.
It is. And these actors tell you who to vote for, and it's all Kamala. So
man, I wonder how psychopaths preach religion.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or practice it rather.
Yeah. Do they even? Yeah, psychopaths. All I know about them is they can't empathize. Like, I could stab you.
And you'd be like, oh, wow.
Is this like, real? Wow, blood. Oh, cool. Yeah, is this real?
Blood.
But they can't say to themselves, what if someone stabbed me? I wouldn't like it.
I wouldn't like that.
No. So hopefully we'll answer some of these questions today, but probably not. If we know anything about the Bhagavad Gita.
We'll get more questions.
Yeah, we'll get more questions, which maybe is the lesson after all. Who knows?
Stop asking questions because there's only going to be more.
Yeah, exactly. I had this deep thought this morning too. They're just like, Mitch, there's this universe, this dark matter. And then someone asked me, but why? Why, Guru Mitch? Why? And then I answered their question. I said, why? And they're like, yeah, that's what I said. Why? I said, no, I already answered your question. Why? Think about it. Meditate on it. Deeper than you know. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. You guys have any doubts? Your doubts?
Now, this is coming from... Arjuna is being told this.
Yes.
By... the not Jesus God.
Yes, that's right.
But it's a great parallel.
Who's very similar in a lot of these ways to Jesus. To what we have learned in the West, which is like the Middle East at the time.
Is this kind of like saying, this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that he's saying that he's giving them a lot of chances. Like you can be enlightened at any moment, even up to the last breath of death.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing, too, because in Christianity, you only have this one life, so the stakes are real. But in this tradition, you could go to hell. You could be reincarnated as a rat. But, like, at some point, you're going to have to do the right thing. Well, maybe you don't have to, really.
Can you go on into eternity without ever reaching enlightenment, just always coasting?
I think you just come back time and time again, and just that's the hell, which is very strange. Because, like I said, I was watching that Joe Rogan episode too, and he was, I'm gonna bleep that out. But he said, "Oh wait, come back time and time again. Why is that hell in some religions? I think life is great. I love life.
I'd love to be here forever."
Yeah, I'd love to be here forever. And I'm like, okay, that is a good question to pose. But Joe, you idiot. You're like a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, of course you'd love to be here.
Of course you love to be here. You're like, you have everything you could ever want.
What about street urchins?
The economy? Yeah, seriously. You're not affected by the economy. I swear, you get rich for a couple years and you just
forget what reality is.
Really, in a strange way. Seriously, you just forget fast.
I feel like at the time of death, it'd be easiest to come to terms with God or know God.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Because I don't although death can happen instantly, I think it takes a few seconds, might seem like minutes in your mind when you're dying, for that final spark to leave your body.
When you have a bad day, you pray to God.
True.
That's what I think about.
A form of dying.
Right?
In that way, yeah.
Well put, exactly. But what about when you're going to die? That's like the ultimate bad day. It's a bad life.
In my opinion, I feel like you see it as a good day because you're seeing it as the end of all future bad days.
I like that.
If there's no you to experience it.
Would that pose you to... would that propel you to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Because I will say, think about that for a second as I say this. That I wanted to know, my whole life I wanted to know what a Jew is. I had no idea. I had and I wanted to know. Everyone would talk about it. They're everywhere. Everybody mentions it. So I read the Bible. That's got to tell you what a Jew is.
Where else would you go?
The Old Testament, right? Yeah.
I'm even more confused than when I started. I think I'm honing in on it, but that's for another episode.
Should have been reading the Torah.
Yeah. Well, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible.
Just kidding.
Should have been reading the Talmud or something like that.
There you go.
But I should have been reading it in Hebrew.
That's where you missed it.
That's where I missed it.
The secrets lie within there.
You get a lot more out of these ancient texts reading them in their original language. Seriously. Anyone who said they read the Tao,
They did not read.
y'all didn't read the Tao. I read it in ancient Chinese.
You have to translate the Tao to know the Tao.
Seriously, get at me, dog. But if you buy Mistranslates the Tao, on sale soon, you'll be enlightened. I guarantee it.
Then you'll have read the Tao.
Then you'll have read the Tao. Seriously, some of these translations, they either want to be overly poetic or not. But we'll get into that later. Continuing on, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Interesting. So in this tradition, they're saying wherever you are when you die, that's the state you will attain. What do you think that means? What does that mean to you?
Probably mindset, because I feel like I had a moment where I was close to dying, not from anything traumatic. I just thought like my spine was shutting down. And my last feeling or like sentiment was I just want to know God and like be in that peaceful place. That was my final sentiment to myself because it felt like I was going to die.
And then you think when you die, perhaps in an afterlife or whatever, you would retain that peacefulness?
Maintain it. But I don't know. It's hard to say because it would seem like I've attained that forever if I attained it at the time of when I stopped existing.
Spiritual. Feels
Yeah.
deep. Feels like real, but in a way that can't be explained in words.
Feels magnetic to some extent. Some kind of spiritual nature involved.
Anything, Poach, or should I say mine?
Go for it.
It's almost as if I take from this, almost as if you could take it poetically, that life itself is almost just teaching you how to die, right? It all leads up to that moment. And if life is just a blip, it's teaching you how to be brave. That the challenges of life are teaching you how to face the ultimate challenge of death. And isn't that the essence of your spiritual nature as well?
I like it, Mitch, but if that makes sense, if you are to not come back again, like if your explanation makes sense from like the Christian viewpoint of this dying, but here, does it really matter what you said if you're going to come back?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Or like, this is implying that there's many levels, right? Like if you're perfectly enlightened at the time of death, you won't come back. And that's the goal, I suppose. Which, again, can be like a little scary.
I see what you're saying now.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
But if you're like pretty happy, maybe you'll come back as like Donald Trump or something. You know, or like, I don't know, an eagle.
Something cool.
Something dope. But if you're kind of being an asshole and if you're kind of like an asshole and upset at life, you'll come back as like Joe Biden or something. Or like
man.
a bug. Yeah.
A stink bug.
Yeah, really stink bug. Yeah. And like,
what about P. Diddy? What did he do?
Damn, see, P. Diddy's rough because he had a great first half of his life. That's rough, man. That could be a punishment in itself. But I think this is sort of lessons in novelty because it also explains the difference between ancient times and now, and how now is very it's easier to live. Look at Joe Rogan. I'd love to come back.
Yeah.
I shoot bows and arrows all day.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. MMA all day. Podcast? Yeah, life is awesome. You know, not everybody has like
Millions
a number
of
one
dollars.
podcast with millions of dollars.
Talks
People
to
big
Elon like
into-
every week.
Yeah, yo, the other day I saw one. I'm not a big Rogan watcher, but he was talking to Theo Vaughn, and Theo's like, "Oh, you think we could get that law passed?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll call Trump." I said to myself, this was where this idea all happened, this whole train of thought, where I says, do you think anybody can just get on their phone and call up Trump?
Rogan thinks he can.
Yeah. You think me and you have Oh, he's on speed dial. Trump, you think you could pass this law for me? Yeah.
Call him right now.
I'll call him right now. We'll get this done. Don't worry about it. Relax. What? So I think, kind of lessons in novelty in that sense where, maybe life wasn't so good back then. So you're like, oh, I never have to live again. That's awesome.
Yeah, this was
Fuck
hard.
this shit. This is hard. My God, I had like 2 days where I was happy. Tired of this. So sort of, and I also had this idea too about perhaps it's these new spiritual worlds that evolve kind of with us. Because this is saying, again, what you attain at the state of death, you'll retain, whether that's a heaven or not. So, spiritual worlds that probably evolve with us. The universe changes, right? Think about quantum, and they're talking about the beginning of the universe. There was a Big Bang. There was a state where everything was really dense and really hot, but we don't know what that is. Is that a life cycle? Is that a part of it? Do you feel better about a universe that has I'll ask this. Do you feel better about a universe that existed forever or one that had a beginning?
My favorite is the cycling universe, where it
lives and dies as we do.
I hit the microphone, but yeah, it's born, it bursts, and then something brings it back in, and it crunches again.
Yeah,
to be reborn again. I like that one.
I like the part of something that's going on forever. That's what I prefer.
Like it's been here forever.
Yeah.
Always will be.
Yep.
How does that reconcile the idea of God, though? God creating the universe. But then they also say that in black holes, they say that this is a fact, even though it has no, verbal interpretation. But somewhere in the black hole, you reach the end of time.
I think because
so when you say forever, are you associating that with time, or is it a whole different concept altogether, or is time space just one small unit of the greater?
I think different for me. Different
world
concept.
To the universe.
I think different concept for me. Time's a different concept because I tend to lump God, time, and space and existence all into one creature called God, one entity called God.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and our understanding is so small that anybody who states something too strongly or is too passionate about things, I'm very wary of. They're not very trustworthy, frankly. They're not very spiritually awakened, I'll say that much. And they'll probably stab you in the back because the passions, in that sense, the passions are sort of the devil of us all.
Yeah, where could that sureness come from?
Where can it come from? I like that a lot.
Because I know my sureness, it's like a weeble wobble, It's like here a second,
wobble.
Gone the other.
That's my new track,
I like
Weeble
that.
Wobble.
I'm a weeble wobble sureness a little bit. I feel that. Have you heard of the one where you get sucked into a black hole, you come out into a different universe?
Yeah.
That the black holes are the connection points between the multiverses.
I could totally see that, right? But then I say to myself, what is another universe?
Right.
Because it's all a question of definitions. Universe, is that time space? Is that
I guess it's you can interact if you can interact
dimensions?
with it, it's in the same universe. So the black hole is like the limit of stuff affecting the other universe.
Yeah. I'd like to believe that. Especially when last chapter they said that God is also in the small, which is also reminiscent of what scientists say now too about how it's possible that there's millions of black holes, but they're all just way subatomic. And maybe that's what makes
on
things.
the tip of your finger.
Yeah. You never know.
You know what, man?
You never know how
They could just say the universe is cupcake icing, and
it's
I'm like,
just
fine.
as believable as anything
Fine.
else. Yeah.
I think
That's where I'm at, dog, really.
I think there's one universe. I don't know if I believe this multiverse thing.
By definition, universe, there's only one.
Right. Black holes would supposedly spit you out somewhere else in the universe, since it's like folded. That's how it
Yeah.
works. But in my opinion, somewhere else would just be in the same universe, just a much farther distance than an immediate, transfer through a black hole. I don't think it would be another universe somewhere.
Yeah, we're going to have to make a lot new words as we figure out more about this so-called universe.
The last theory is if you get trapped into a black hole, it's like Mitch, like you said, like what do you attain in life? You something in death. So like the last moment you have before you get sucked into the black hole is imprinted forever on the black hole, because light, the last light is never going to leave. So that light is like stuck.
That's another thing too,
On the
right? They
black
say
hole.
nothing escapes a black hole, but then there's also the Hawking radiation,
Yeah.
which escapes the black hole.
It could.
Emits from a black hole.
Which I
Again,
forget
all
what-
these are just words that maybe aren't even.
Which does something. I read about it once, and it's because of quantum.
Yeah,
It emits radiation because supposedly particles come into existence and they disappear too. But the black hole is so strong, it rips them apart as radiation before they can disappear.
So it's funny because they say matter cannot be created nor destroyed.
Right.
The Supreme Lord said the indestructible, transcendental, living entity is called the Brahman. And his eternal nature is called the Self. So that's just a definition we're going with right now, I guess. That which is indestructible is the Brahman. Actions pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, or fruit of actions. Look at that. We're getting some definitions, but again, he makes different words to describe the first word, so I'm starting to hate words, man.
We're getting layered here. We're getting very layered.
I feel like that's just Hindu mythology in general, just
Right?
layers and layers of shit.
upon onions, like onions of philosophy.
But to what Evans, what we were talking about before, it's like maybe that's the point. Is like,
That's the lesson in it
yeah,
all.
I'm gonna talk so much shit about the 32 Krishnas and the 55
Stop
Bhattaks
Until you're like,
until you,
forget
oh,
it.
yeah, fuck this. Close the book, and then you're enlightened all of a sudden. I swear to God, there's
I don't
something
need to
that.
know.
Yeah,
You got
I'm
me
tired.
speaking in 20-syllable words.
Yeah. Yeah, just concepts to meditate on, I guess. Probably what it comes down to. Oh, look at this. One should meditate on the Supreme, the one who knows everything, the oldest, the controller, smaller than an atom, maintainer of everything, who is inconceivable, transcendental like the sun to darkness.
The main thing I'm getting from this is that the Brahman is the most important part, the self, the thing that recognizes itself
Yeah.
amongst something else in relation to other things.
So the Brahman is the indestructible, transcendental, living entity. I'm just going to say that's life, maybe.
Yeah, that's the only interpretation you can have of the
Yeah.
universe, the self.
So let's break this down. Yeah, life. It's life, but it's also indestructible. It's all of life together. It's when the hippies say everything is one, man.
That's what I'm hearing here.
I think they're talking about Brahman.
I think they're talking like the Star Wars. The Force is Brahman.
I could see that. Yeah, the force, the living force. Oh,
Force
deep.
is
I like it. There it is. I like that. See, we got to make our own AW definitions here. And the Brahman's eternal nature is called the self. That one's a little tricky, but maybe we'll get deeper into it.
My first stab at it would be it's the self is the Brahman's eternal nature, because by recognizing that you are a self is the only way you can recognize any nature at all.
Oh, that's pretty deep. Yeah, I like that. Recognizing the self, and some don't recognize the self, therefore are farther from God.
Think they're separate.
That's
They think
cool.
they're unique.
Right. And I just like, everybody thinks of God as being huge and stuff, and this says God is smaller than an atom, but also controller, knows everything, and he's the oldest. Implies an age, but yet again, just words. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, controlling the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air of the soul at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. So he's given us how to be in the yogic nature, fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head.
Life air.
Life air, what does that mean, right? The prana,
So there's above your head. There's like a.
life air.
Is that the perfect flame without turbulence?
Yeah.
The flame shooting
Oh,
up.
maybe that's what it is. We are the candle, my friend.
Yeah. This is
The unflickering flame is above the
unflickering
head.
flame is
If you
that
focus on the heart.
What
Now,
does
this
he
is
call it?
interesting
Life
because,
air.
Life air.
Yeah.
This is interesting because for a couple chapters now, they say, get rid of the senses. Don't trust the senses. Senses. And so naturally I said, what do I focus on? My whole life is senses.
your entire experience, every moment of your being is a sense.
Right. So this is saying focus on the heart, which, you know, you could say is a feeling, but maybe it's more than that in this tradition. It is the center of being. It's where it comes from. And the life air above the head. Maybe that's like a spiritual sense. It's above the head. It's not something that we physically sense. And then one establishes one in yoga.
Maybe it's the filter up here. The spiritual head is the filter through which you interact and change the world.
That's a deep one.
Because when you're dealing with senses, that's a reaction. Things are being forced onto you, and you have these sense reactions. So maybe this life air, what was it called?
Life air.
Maybe that life air is the filter through which that you respond to your senses.
I like that, seeing it as a filter. That's pretty cool.
I got a good one. It has to be things that do not deal with immediate survival. Because that's very like body and primal. That's not spirit.
Yeah.
Right?
That's cool.
That's so you have to trust the feelings that I guess are not about keeping you alive.
Yeah, true.
Like, oh, I want to do art. That has nothing to do with survival.
Yeah.
You know, that would be probably a life air of the soul.
Man,
something like that.
That's a tough one because you bring up a good point. It's like you have to live. You have to feel these senses. You're afraid of death.
Mm-hmm.
Fear. Like, what does it mean to be alive? Because fear means like you're afraid of pain. You're afraid of dying.
If you weren't, though, you wouldn't be living very long.
Yeah, true. And that's not very material either necessarily. It's more of a concept because the brain is material as well. But that's sort of the center of all the senses. And yet you could say, oh, but it's the heart is material as well. Isn't it? But maybe it's more of like the Eastern interpretation of the heart, which is the heart, mind, soul.
Right. When I hear you say heart, I don't think of the organ. I think of like, where does your willingness to do something come from? Heart. Like, where put your heart in it is what I hear.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Not the pumping.
I think that's
blood.
the way to see it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I guess it means like your effort, your energies, your heart.
Man, the spiritual things will always be so hard to put to words, but
I keep saying heart 8 times. It's like it's your heart.
what I want to know from the Bhagavad Gita is what is the purpose of life then? I mean, maybe that's not even the right question. It's certainly not, but everything's about death. Everything's about not living, getting away from this earth, meditate, don't even be in the earth. Then why would I even be here? To prepare yourself for death? I was dead before I was alive. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place.
My God.
Man.
Maybe because it's simply just
Unless
fun.
you're Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Always happy all the time. Never wants to die.
It's this weird thing where a lot of it ends up being bullshit, like most religions. I think so. There's always a kernel of truth, and the poetry is probably the closest to the truth. But then everything else is just full of just bull all the time.
Do you
all these
think-
traditions and damn.
Do you think a lot of this, Mitch, there is some truth in here, but do you think the majority of this is traditional fluff? Because,
Yeah.
you know, someone stubborn is like, no, Krishna's blue. No, he's purple.
Yeah.
And they had to get it really solidified down into like how Brahma lives and how Brahma interacts with humanity. Because otherwise they would just argue with each other. They were like, okay, we'll settle it
There
forever.
it is.
We're going to write it all in a book, and that's going to be the Gita, and we're never talking about it again.
Deepest thing I've heard today. Yeah, so true, man. I really think that's what it is. And isn't that a lot of the Bible too?
Could be.
Yeah.
Like, does it really matter if Moses held the staff while he was talking to a bush or whatever the hell it is? Does it really matter, most of the stuff? There's an essence of God, and I'm really learning right now. I hope you guys are too. It's like there is an essence of God, but the rest seems to be just tradition. Like you said, is Krishna green or blue? Who cares? Who knows? But now it's written, so that's what it was. But in my tradition, we don't talk about what color Krishna was.
Yeah, it's like there's angels.
But in theirs, they do.
But there are the angel Gabriel. There's archangels. There's cherubim. There's all these angels. We got to categorize the angels. Like, what? They're spirits. What?
You said
you said to say what the book said.
You said how it seems that all this religion stuff is just BS and they're just saying things. Because I think when you ultimately get to a place of all these gurus and people doing these writings, that they are just as confused as you are, I feel like then you kind of have that glimpse of it.
That's a pretty good one, you know, and I talk about fake Christians a lot on this show, but I bet there's a lot of fake Hindus.
Yeah.
Am I right? Like,
numbers are down in India from what I've read.
Yeah, people... Yeah. There are people who believe the spirit and are close to God, really. I believe that truly exists. But they're not worried about what color Krishna is, what conversations Adam and Eve had in the Garden of Eden. Because it's all just not... Those are fake religious people who are... Seriously, you're way too caught up on the wrong thing.
It's like raising...
Isn't that fucking deep?
It's like the raising a child thing that we've definitely talked about on the show, where the parent would be better off to say to the kid that he or she doesn't know the answers to his questions.
Yeah, very true.
Rather than say, this is what we've been doing for thousands of years.
Yeah.
This
and
is
to your
what
point
it is.
about fun, it's just like, because that's when stories are made. Well, why does this happen? Well, because a little ghost came and a little ghost,
Indian ghost.
Indian ghost said, "Oh my God," and crossed the bridge and said, "Oh my God," and that's how
I'm reincarnated,
and that's where babies come from, my friend.
He caught many fishes in that river.
And you're like, wow, that's a cool story, Grandpa, but it's bullshit.
Are all these religions just going around the bush, not telling kids where babies come from?
I think so, man.
Just getting tired of answering kids.
It all started with that. Where do babies come from?
Oh no, you must learn about Krishna.
Krishna is blue. Shut up. It's like... I'm learning that right now. I think that's the huge lesson from today. It took chapter 8. And there's a lot of deep stuff, but the poetry is what could be broken down. But besides that, it's just a tradition. This is just learning how that tradition has looked at the nature of God and how their thought process started versus ours, which makes you a more open being, I think.
I agree.
Yet there is another nature which is eternal and transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains. So that was the definition of Brahman from before, if you remember.
There's always... To me, it sounds like there's always going to be life. That's what I get, the basics I get from that.
Yeah. Even right here in my reading, I was getting so frustrated with what this BS is. I'm like, it kind of is Occam's razor in a lot of the ways. Why is it got to be so complicated? The superior spiritual nature, and then of course, but then if the superior is the Brahman, then you remember the inferior natures from last chapter are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So there's that which remains forever, and sort of the physical / almost material spiritual side lives forever.
So Brahman always finds a way, it says.
Yeah, so life always finds a way. That's a good
Jurassic
translation
Park.
for us.
That's like one of those things written on a college girl's dorm room.
Life finds
There's
a way,
just like a weed coming through the rocks or the sidewalk pavement, and then a little quote.
Life finds a way. Brahman finds a way. Oh, best of the Bharatas! I shall now explain to you the different times at which passing away from the world one does or does not come back. There's times.
What?
Now there's a time of day at which you come back.
So if you die in the morning, you come back at like a different time?
You got it, dog. You ready for this? Those who know the Supreme Brahman pass away from the world during the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment during the fortnight of the moon and the 6 months when the sun travels north.
Woo!
That's coming soon.
You now know when to die, my friend.
That's the best time to die?
Yes, that's the good time to die. These gods, so talking about gods, I did a little research, and these gods sort of guide one to the death realm, supposedly. And some great yogis are, if you remember, some great yogis are said to be able to choose when they die. You ever seen those stories?
I have heard of people meditating to their death.
Yeah.
Or I guess that was the original yogi, right?
Yeah. There was another guy who's like, I will die in 2 days. And he's like, he's full of it. But then he actually did. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the moonlight fortnight, or in the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, or who reaches the moon planet, again comes back. So that's if you want to come back.
Or you don't have to do all of them.
Yeah, one or the other, I guess. So I looked into this again, and again, kind of like the Greek tradition, they say that you spend a few thousand years on the moon before you come back.
The moon planet.
The moon planet.
Not the moon planet.
The moon planet.
The moon planet.
So when you die, I didn't know this. We're learning this. We're learning a lot today.
This is the first time I've heard this in my life.
Yeah, in Hindu tradition, so Krishna says, you die, and you got to die at the right time. But if you die at the wrong time, you go to the moon. Dude, this sounds like a fucking fairy.
Is this why Nikhil was praying to the moon?
Oh, this is it!
This is why.
Wow, my life.
He didn't want to go to the moon.
Makes so much sense.
But he wanted to go to the moon.
Yeah, he wanted to stay away from the moon.
He had to stay
and
away.
he was praying
Right.
for the dead souls on the moon.
Yeah, to keep him away.
Whoa. It's all making sense.
Now you know why.
One time, me and Poach caught our friend praying to the moon because his mom was screaming at him to do it.
Yeah. He's
So
like,
he
hang on,
goes-
guys, I got to pray to the moon real quick.
And I'm like, what the fuck was that? He's like, oh, nothing. We got to go. And never talks about it again.
We gotta go.
I was like, what the fuck? Nikhil, friend to the moon.
Oh, my God.
In the moon.
Wow. So there you go. He's probably praying for the dead souls and saying, I never want to go there again. And you chill on the moon for a couple thousand years, and then you take life again. So that makes sense. Like, hell is on the moon. We think hell is down there, but their hell is up there.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing.
And you gotta chill where it's very cold. And, however you died, in that state, you will remain on the moon. So maybe if you died and you were chilling, you'd be like a cool moon.
I gotta say, it's a lot more
Aristocracy.
interesting than Christianity.
Yeah, certainly.
This is more
Story gets
hijinks
deep. I'm learning a lot.
in this religion.
According to the Vedas, my friend. And here's the big finish of chapter 8, because that's all we could handle. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving to charity, being philosophical, or fruitive activity. So he could still have those things in devotional service. Maybe this is saying that they could still enjoy life. To a certain degree, you could still live even though you're doing this stuff.
I'd argue he's even saying it's impossible to not have a good life if you're trying to do these
That's
things.
pretty cool. I like that.
Because it says dedicate yourself to these tasks.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think even
Well, you're not brief. You can do all this stuff. Yeah.
right, and I think he's saying it's impossible to have a bad life if you try to do those.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this also gets into stuff. You kind of have to know a little bit about India and Hinduism to know this stuff, which is they talk about after you study the Vedas as a young man and know all this knowledge, then you enter a era of your life called the brahmachari, which is sort of household life. So you're allowed to go marry, have kids, and live a real life. But as long as you study the Vedas first, then you can go have a life, because that's part of life, is to be real, be regular. Very interesting. But
So is in India, I guess I would say,
yeah.
I'm sure there's secular people, right, that don't follow any of this and just
Sure.
get married.
Yep.
But I would guess the majority would be
On the devotional path.
on the devotional path. Like your parents would be like, you must learn the Vedas before you leave the house.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a terrible accent. But
Go to your room. Do not. Yeah. You cannot leave unless you study the Vedas.
Okay.
But then after that, you sort of have to take it up again in the Vanaprastha stage of life, which is once your kids are all grown up, they turn 18, you kick them out of the house. You're supposed to kill your wife. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. It doesn't say what happens to your wife. I guess she's not that important.
A flaming tomb.
Yeah. But he undergoes severe penances, perhaps for having lived the regular life, perhaps having sex and having kids and stuff.
Penances?
Yeah, penances, such as living in the forest, dressing with tree bark.
What the hell? I thought.
And not shaving, having a big, long, old man beard.
I thought this was the way.
And you just die in the woods. Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to get the Vedas, have a successful family.
No,
and
you
then
forgot
die
the
in
last
woods.
part. Yeah, now you got to die in the woods. This is the Indian devotional path, they're saying.
That's
study the Vedas, have kids,
and then die in the woods.
Die in the woods.
That's the first instance of guilt I've heard in Hindu tradition. I didn't know there was some kind of like penance involved or guilt involved for doing what people do.
Well, you know, penance doesn't necessarily imply guilt, I suppose.
True. That's true.
You know, it's just what would you say? Giving up.
Putting your mind at ease, basically.
Yeah, because you acquired all these things. And people want you. In all traditions, I think, they say, I've heard that in all traditions, let us know what you think, comment. You're supposed to learn things as a child. You can't not learn things. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to live a life. So, also known as you have to give into culture. You have to go to school. You have to know people. People know things. There's no way to really escape culture. And maybe that is having kids, having a wife, having a family. But at the end, life itself makes you attached to these things. Therefore, in the Vanaprastha stage, you give it all up again. You can't just not learn anything in life and start in the forest. You have to learn stuff, fully experience life, and then middle age, you kind of have to forget everything that you've learned. It's a story of enlightenment and reawakening. Whereas if you never learned anything in the first place, you might just die in the woods at age 2. You might be retarded. You wouldn't get the full experience of life.
And you would break the cycle.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have any offspring.
You
wouldn't be able to perpetuate.
That's true, which is a good
knowledge.
point because that's a great point because even in saying this, I said maybe this is just like Indian government propaganda. Like, have kids, my friend. You must also do this.
Yeah.
Like, continue our species.
It's almost as if it's effortless, though. It happens naturally. Like that's just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You do all that you want to do, that you plan to do, and you've read to do. And then you just...
It allows for a full life. Exactly, yeah.
It stresses you out to a point, and then you say, all right, now I just want to die peacefully.
Now
kind of
I must give it up, die peacefully, and never come back again.
I do not want to do this again.
But let's get into a different ancient tradition. Wow, this one was hefty today. Woo! Let's change it up and go to ancient China with Mitch Translates the Tao. I like ancient China more too. I'm starting to. Mitch Translates the Tao, chapter 48. Act in scholarship daily, and you will gain. Act in the Tao daily, and you will lose. Lose and lose until there's no acting at all. Not acting and not acting. Take the world while forever doing nothing. For when something must be done, it's not enough to take the world. Man.
This one.
Now, the first paragraph is a story of deception, I'd say. You know, act in scholarship and you'll gain. You will. very factual, very worldly. You'll learn a lot, maybe become wise. But act in the Tao and you'll lose. Oh no, I thought Tao was good. Why do I want to lose? And then it smacks you
I'm gonna lose and
with
lose.
you're gonna lose and lose and lose until there's no acting at all. No acting, no not acting. It's just Tao. It says act in scholarship. That word is very important, especially in the Chinese.
Man.
Look at it. Act in scholarship, act in Tao.
How are you gonna act the Tao? The Tao is like,
boom.
How are you gonna
act me out, bitch?
Because you're not acting and you're not acting. You are. There is no act. You delete this paragraph. Again, it's like a math equation. You deleted the word. You brought in the word act and then you deleted it. That's all that happened.
Yeah, by acting upon the Tao, you have nullified the Tao.
Yeah. Nullified any sort of pretense at all.
Oh yeah, all about pretense, all about an expectation.
I really think so, yeah. And then, of course, take the world while forever doing nothing. It's, take the world, capture the world, it's yours, whatever. You understand what that means. Because when something must be done, it's not enough to take the world. So they're saying you take the world while doing nothing, because if you have to do something, you can't take the world. The only way the world can be taken is by not doing anything.
When something actually must be done, nothing in the world can prepare you for it.
That's a good way to see it. I like that a lot. Something's got to be done. You just have to act.
Don't even try to prepare for it, because nothing on this world will even prepare you for it if there actually is an action.
Yeah, that's super deep.
Because the whole world is nothing to be done.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is
super deep.
a brain buster.
I think about maybe something you've never done before. How can you prepare?
You just can't.
When you don't know what it is. Or
you can search the whole world on preparation for this thing, but you won't find it.
Right. The
Therefore,
concept of living, the concept of like having the plan. We always talk about it. It's just feels like this ancient truth to me. This is Mitch's Tao if I ever write it. But I have this vision of you're in the shower and you're talking shit about somebody who was rude to you today. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna get him tomorrow. Yeah, when they say this, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna have the upper hand, and they're gonna be so embarrassed. Yeah. And then every time without fail, I can guarantee it, you'll never find yourself in the exact situation that you planned. Because
Never.
it's deeper than that. It's a demonic force. It's the antithesis of life. It's you propelling yourself as God. And instead of just forgiving or letting it go, there's no way to prepare. It's not enough to take the world.
like you were saying last week or the other time, it'll be something that you definitely did not think about.
Definitely did not think of.
100%.
Yo, I swear, 100%. It's just deeper than I could even state. It's just
A random
seems to be
kid
a
from
truth
middle school you don't
of
remember
reality.
will show up.
Yeah. Oh, there you
That
go.
was-
Is it
that was your
bitches? Is it
dream, yeah.
demons?
Yeah.
Or is it a kid from second grade? Like.
And it's always going to be worse than the last one that you were preparing for again.
Oh yeah.
Because you think that you thought that you did everything to mitigate that happening again, but it's 10 times worse because it catches you off guard and you think you had it figured out.
Yeah.
So it's like double devastation.
Oh my God, my friend. Yeah, that's so true. It'll end up worse because of these demonic forces. Damn. Well, I think we got to the bottom of it, y'all. This has been episode 67. Of Ancient Wisdom. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you didn't get bogged down too much in the Indian nature of it all. We end with Tao to bring it up, bring a little more tangible, simple stuff. There doesn't have to be 8,000 verses. It's just 2 little paragraphs. Maybe the way it should have been. Maybe the way this episode should have been. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time on Ancient Wisdom.